All right, hoping everything works. I'm getting a bad network quality, but if you can see, I can continue. Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Calvin Elkins, PhD student at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I'm also active duty United States Air Force, so I am here through the Civilian Institutions program at the Air Force Institute of Technology. But as I said before, this talk will have to do with my PhD research only. My advisor is Deanna Hintz. She wasn't able to present today, but she is there in the chat, so hi, Deanna. I also saw Paula Salio from Argentina, who was also very integral in the things I'm going to talk about here today. So, what I am doing, using social media to identify hail producing storms in Argentina during the 2018-2019 severe weather season. So this is actually going to be in two parts. One part's really going to speak to using the social media, and the other part is going to speak to how we're using radar to really look at these storms and identify these storms as we move forward. So why Argentina? Well, near the Sierras de Cordoba, there are very deep and intense thunderstorms, and these thunderstorms have proven to be some of the most active hail producers in the world. So this presents the challenge of how to better predict the onset of these hailstorms. Some of the challenges being there's a variety of storm structures, so there's a need for forecasters to understand storm types and severity. And in this part of the world, there have been a lack of hail-focused studies specifically using ground-based radar, so that gives us something to look into and use. Just looking as far as radar. We did the Relámpago project in November and December 2018. I was able to go down there. We were centered in Villa Carlos Paz, Cordoba, Argentina. As we said, that region is prone to extreme weather, the large hail, quick upscale growth of mesoscale systems, and an urban flood threat. Now, at the time, you see the circles to the right on those cities in Argentina. At the time we were there were 5 active radars that were being used. I believe more have been added since. I'm sure Paula can testify to what's operational now, but at the time, that's what we had to work with. So looking at the limitations of the time and looking to see how we can better improve things, well, we thought about social media data. Twitter, because it's very temporal, people tweet things as they see it. There are a lot of users who tweet statements and pictures and videos of hailfall. SMN, which is Argentina's weather service, they'll send tweets with their alertas and weather info. There's also bots that will retweet and send retweet with severe weather hashtags. And there are also like special weather interest groups. They will also amplify the message. So there's a lot of weather information that can get out there during times of severe weather. We also discovered that other social media platforms, things like Facebook, aren't as useful in real time. So here we're going to stick more to Twitter data. And the question is, can this data be used to identify these hail-producing storms? And also, can it be used to improve nowcasting and storm verification? So getting to the social media data, this brings the research question of just how useful is this data? How much data moves through Twitter on a hail day? What is the signal to noise ratio? How do you separate useful data from non-useful data? And is it even necessary to do that separation? So if you look down here, the question is, what fraction of incoming Twitter data is useful versus noise? Well, we have to define useful. So defining useful as a tweet that is within spatial and temporal bounds where a forecaster can use the data to amend forecasts, issue or extend warnings, or verify hailfall. This is going to depend on the timing and location of the tweet with respect to the position of the storm. Noise is going to be any tweets with hashtags, images, etc. that are related to the event but can't be used for nowcasting or verification. And then later on, we're going to have to define what kind of tweets would be considered noise. Now, looking at the radar and identification process of these storms, the question is what storm mode, what shape that it takes on radar and underlying characteristics are most likely to produce hail in the Cordoba region. Remember on the first slide, we said there's a variety of storm modes that move through. So the working hypothesis is that supercells, which are individual rotating large storms, are the most prolific hail producers in the Cordoba region, and that non-supercell cellular convection, or individual storms that don't have the same kind of structure and rotation, will produce the second most. It's important to note that this work does not take hail size into consideration, because a lot of studies do. A lot of studies will look at large hail or small hail. This one is simply looking at hailfall in total. Quickly looking at our classification modes for those who might not be familiar. Multi-cell unorganized means there's a lot of cells there, but they don't have a real strong organization. Multi-cell organized means that you have a variety of cells in an area, but they're kind of interacting with each other. Sometimes they're connected and will be a very broad region. A discrete non-supercell is a discrete cell all by itself, but it's not showing the rotation that we like to see with a supercell. And then discrete supercells, where you have clear rotation, it's one storm by itself, and it'll often show that little hook. If you look down in the bottom right, you can see that little hook appendage on the north side. For anybody in America or Canada, in the Southern Hemisphere, supercells will actually look flipped to you. So that's what you're seeing. Now getting to the social media, we had to gather this data. So how we identified the storms to look at, we actually used the social media first. We had storm reports through earlier research through the HINTS Research Group and Jake Mulholland, who came up with that classification scheme here at the University of Illinois. We also have something called Brandwatch, which scours social media for certain hashtags, so we were able to get reports from there. And we also have the ground reports from Relámpago and from our partners in Argentina. Now, not all of those data were from Twitter, but we have those data that we can use to verify what we were seeing with the social media. We created the database looking for initiation time and location as determined by the first radar cell that we saw at 35 dBz, indicating some moderate convection. Taking note of the hail time and location, looking for that first sign of hail being dual pole signatures or a 3-body scatter spike on radar. And then we determined the convective mode, which were the 4 modes that I showed just before. Determine the convective mode of the storm at the time of the hail. And all the radar data we used came from the Cordoba radar, which we call RMA1. With these data sets to identify the possible hail cases, what we needed was a tweet that showed photo or video. That way we could be more confident that what we're looking at was actually video. Sometimes you do have to be careful. There was one kind of humorous thing where somebody took, and I'm not kidding, they took ice out of their freezer, held it in their hand and said, "Ooh, look, severe hail." So you do have to go through and pay attention to what people are doing there. After you do that, we interrogate the radar data for the individually identified storm days. And you're looking for certain things. Are there other cells that move over the area? Do you see a clear 3-body scatter spike that indicates there is hail there? If you don't see that, but you have the report on the ground, is there something in the characteristics of the radar that lets you know that there is a high likelihood of hail there? Once we can verify all that and that target cell is identified, we can assign the storm mode classification. We can use radar data to track the cell to its origin, measure the time from its origin to the first time of hail, and measure the time and location of that spot with respect to the tweet identifying it. So this brings us to the statistics. From our research, we identified 165 data points from 141 storms. Now, when we go just to the tweets, we had 47 tweets from 37 storms. The helpful arrow right here pointing you to the 37 data points that we had for those storms. Now, some storms have multiple reports. That's why the numbers don't match. In that case, we only looked at the first report of the storm. This data here, the x-axis is distance at closest approach to the tweet location. So the closest that the cell moved to the city that the tweet said it was from, And on the y-axis, that's the time. That's the number of minutes between the closest approach of the storm and the time of the tweet. So that should always be greater than 0 because nobody should be tweeting about a storm that hasn't approached them yet, ideally. Some of the things to note here. Number one, location accuracy is very good. Some of the things that sometimes you'll worry about when doing something like this is population bias. Cordoba being the bigger city around there, you might think that you'd have a lot more reports there, but a lot of the smaller cities actually had these reports. So you didn't have a lot of population bias, and most of the storm reports were within 10 kilometers of the location of where the tweet came out, which is very good. One of the issues is there's a wider spread as far as time goes. Only 10 of these 37 got tweeted within 30 minutes of the storm. And these storms tend to move pretty fast, so that's kind of important to know. If we expand it to 60 minutes, it's still only 18 of those 37 that are still getting tweets of the storm within an hour of its passing. So as we move forward, that's something to think about. And then here, there's actually not a lot of outliers. There aren't a lot of outliers as far as distance or time once you get past 2.5 hours, but 2.5 hours can be very important there. But it is interesting that there aren't too many of these data points that are far outside of the range. Now, looking back at the storm mode, the storm type, to see which ones happen most often, we found out that it's actually discrete non-supercell that was overwhelmingly the top hail producing mode. Now that could be due to the volume of the updrafts, very broad storms having large updrafts. It's also that some discrete non-supercells could be discrete supercells that are actually hard to identify on radar. There wasn't a significant difference in numerical distribution between the other 3 types as compared to discrete non-supercells, and also not a difference in distribution from early to late season. As you see here, separated October, November, December from January, February, March, and a lot of the percentages stayed pretty much the same. So that seemed to be pretty even across the entire season. But there was a significant seasonal difference in time from initiation to hail. If you look in January, February, March, with the exception of multi-cell unorganized, all of the times from initiation of storm to hailfall is much shorter in January, February, March compared to October, November, December. This data could indicate that there are fewer but more intense storms in January, February, March. But I do have down at the bottom, there's a note that Relambago ran in October, November, December, and you have a lot of researchers down there. There's a possibility that we could have detected more because you had more instruments looking, and that might contribute to the difference in the number. Because of that, in the future, we might want to look at something like 2019, 2020 and see if we see the same thing. This is 1 year of data. You can draw some hypotheses from it, but you're going to want to look at other years and see if all of those patterns do stick. So our main takeaways: discrete non-supercells being the most prolific hail producers with the highest number of hail producing systems and the shortest time from initiation to hailfall. The only difference that we saw in early to late season was initiation to hailfall time. Now coming back to social media, what fraction of that incoming Twitter data is useful versus noise? Well, what we were able to learn here was that spatially, the tweets tend to show very good correlation with the location of storms. So you don't have a big problem spatially. What we are going to have to be careful of is that temporally, there's a lot of variance. You're not getting a lot within 30 minutes or an hour. Again, fewer than half of those cases were within 60 minutes. And in this case, noise was already filtered out, so we're not even addressing that. So the new question this brings up is, what combinations of distance and time will be the most useful for forecasters? And a question that I came up with discussing with my advisor is, will that time matter if we can still see the cell on radar? In other words, if we get a report that there's hail from this cell and we can see it on radar, does it matter how late that tweet comes in if that cell is still alive? That's something that we can discuss at a later date, future work. Tracking these storm paths from initiation to hailfall, because storm paths, where they initiate, how they travel, may be important to the mode and the timing. Analyzing how storms initiate. Do they initiate on the mountains? Do they initiate out over flatlands? Do they initiate in the area of other convection? And the main challenge, not to forget, is how to use all of this data to improve prediction. One of the things that we thought about was replicating a real-time Twitter stream for a hail event, taking an event that we didn't cover that has a lot of tweets and kind of simulating how we would go through and use this data to look at our hypothesis. Do the tweets need to be filtered? What distance time combos will be the most useful? And taking that data to create some kind of decision tree or a nowcasting method that could help with weather warnings, extending warnings, and pretty much coming up with a way to make this real-time social media data useful in this environment. And that gets to signal to noise ratio. What different categories to place tweets in. You have bots, you have retweets, you have news, official orgs, silly and irrelevant posts. How do we deal with those? Do we have to deal with those? Are they easy to filter out? So everything that's been presented here is preliminary data. Like I said, this is part of my PhD work. So in the future, we'll get some of the answers to these questions and see how they work out. Thanks to everybody who's worked with me here at the University of Illinois, our partners in Argentina at SMN and Universidad de Buenos Aires, everybody who worked on Relámpago, and of course the Air Force Institute of Technology, which is why I'm here getting my PhD. That is all for me. I guess I can stop screen sharing. Oh, sharing is paused.
Okay, Calvin, thank you very much for a very interesting talk. We have a bit, unfortunately, we have a bit of a technical issue here that will not affect the questions that you will get. It only affects me because I cannot see the question. I can't see the questions. So Martin is going to moderate the questions and read them out to you. Yeah, my apologies that I would have loved to do that, but for some reason I'm not able to see the questions. Martin, please go ahead.
Okay, so we have two questions right now. So Paul Joe wants to know, for report time, I would have thought that those social reports with images would be very close in time to the phenomena. Do you have any speculation about why the 30 minutes delay?
Yeah, my speculation off the top is that some people might take a picture or record it and for whatever reason just not upload it immediately. We have hail here sometimes in Champaign, and I try to record it and send it out immediately, but that's also how I'm thinking about it. I'm a severe weather meteorologist. I know what National Weather Service forecasters can use, so I try to get that to them in a timely manner. Perhaps your everyday person thinks it looks cool. They make a recording of it, and maybe it's not as important to them to get it out in a timely fashion. They're not a meteorologist. This is just something kind of cool that happens.
Right. So Michelle Spruce from Exeter wants to know, regarding collecting the Twitter data, which hashtags or other terms within the tweets did you use to determine it was a hail tweet?
So look for something having to do with hail. So Granzino, Paula, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but Granzino is the Spanish word for hail. Somebody who speaks Spanish can type that in properly in the chat. But also things that were like stone or pebble in Spanish. Again, I don't want to say it wrong. Then looking for hashtags for the names of all the little cities in the area. So it was combining some hashtag about hail or hailstone with a hashtag for the city or the area and making sure that only looking at tweets that are actually coming out of Argentina to kind of to filter it. That worked pretty well. There were only a few days that we had to go back and do a really deep sweep and discover that we missed. I actually have a very, very long line of hashtags, and Deanna and our other researcher Rebecca can attest to that. We have a very long list.
Right. A lot of questions coming in. Maybe one or two more. Maybe that connects also to a question that I have. Ron McTaggart Cohen, I hope I don't butcher that name. Could you design a social media campaign that would serve as training so that folks would know that tweeting quickly is important? And my question would be like, what would be the perfect tweet for you to get the most information out of this? So maybe like having the perfect hashtag, the perfect photo, the perfect location enabled. Is there something like a prototype format that people should tweet?
To answer that question, there are actually, I believe it was in Switzerland, they actually did a campaign where, I believe it was the Swiss Weather Service, they actually put out an app and ran a campaign telling people to actually tweet their weather, not tweet, I'm sorry, it was their own app, but use this app to report weather. That way they could get all the data in and kind of use that as crowdsourcing. It's probably possible down there. I was only in Argentina for so long, so this probably goes something like Paolo or people at University of Buenos Aires, but I'm sure that there could be a type of campaign to do that down there. As far as the perfect tweet, the hailstone, something to compare the size to, and tweet it within 5-10 minutes as soon as it comes. That is actually something when we were at Relámpago, we gave people little rulers so they could actually measure the hail and kind of encourage them to do things like that. But yes, timely and with something that can actually measure the size of the hail. And in cases where there is a lot of hailfall, maybe a short video showing what kind of hailfall we're looking at.
Right. Okay. So there's more questions in the chat. Magnus also made a comment about the weather app. I know that Meteo Swiss has functionality like that for hail. So maybe you can reply to the other questions in chat and we move on with the next talk.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem.